Hi there, Jason Bowers with Lone Star Benefits. I am excited to present this Lone Star lesson on HSAs and FSAs because I know how many people get industry jargon and acronyms confused. While they're only one letter apart, they are vastly different. I also have some props to help you remember how these tools work. There are a lot of details that go along with these plans, but today I want to touch on the high-level components so you understand what each one is and how it operates. We can get into the nitty-gritty details in another video. Let's start with the HSA, which stands for Health Savings Account. An HSA is a personal savings account that works alongside an HSA qualified medical plan. So there are two components I just mentioned, the medical plan and the savings account that goes along with it, which has its own setup and enrollment. You have to be enrolled in an HSA qualified medical plan to contribute to an HSA. Many people don't realize this. There are IRS guidelines that follow this, and that is because of the tax advantages that accompany the HSA. How do you know if you're enrolled in an HSA qualified medical plan? Well, the carrier's documentation on the plan, the SBC, Summary of Benefits and Coverage, will tell you. But often you will find HSA in the name of the plan. So now that you know an HSA must accompany an HSA qualified medical plan, from here forward, I'm going to only talk about the HSA, the personal savings account, and not the medical plan. When we were kids, we all had one of these. We put coins in it, maybe some bills, and we saved money so we could eventually afford something. The piggy bank was yours. If you moved homes, the piggy bank came with you, and the money was there until you needed it. As you got older, you likely started saving money inside a 401k. I want you to think of an HSA like that piggy bank, or better yet, like a 401k. But instead of it being for retirement, it's for healthcare expenses. You can also use it for dental and vision, as well as some other expenses. You're able to contribute to an HSA, have those funds invested in the stock market, just like your 401k, and then use those funds down the road to cover healthcare expenses. Some additional information. You own the account, and the funds never expire. The contribution limits are set by enrollment tier, which is individual or family, and they have a catch-up provision based on your age. You can change your contribution amount throughout the year. There are tax advantages as well. There are tax-free contributions, tax-free qualified distributions, and tax-free growth. Once again, very similar to a 401k for healthcare expenses. Now, let's change topics and look at the FSA, the Flexible Spending Account. An FSA allows you to set aside pre-tax contributions that can later be used to pay for healthcare expenses or dependent care. Let's talk about some of the components around this tool. Participation in FSA is not tied to a particular type of medical plan like the HSA. The employer is the owner, the employer. If you change or lose your job, the employer keeps the remaining balance. Your contribution amount, is set annually and can only change after a qualifying event. It has a use it or lose it component. If you don't use all the funds in the account by the end of the year, you lose them. There can be a grace period, but the important part to remember is you lose what you don't use at the end of each year. Contribution limits are by type of FSA and not by enrollment tier like the HSA. So what are some of the types of FSAs? Well, there's a general purpose FSA, which may also be referred to as a medical FSA. This benefit covers a broad range of medical, dental, and vision expenses. There's dependent care FSA. This is used to cover dependent care expenses for your dependents. And the third one is a limited purpose FSA. This is an HSA compatible FSA and can be used for dental and vision. The two most common are the general purpose and the dependent care. So let's talk about my prop that I have to help you remember what an FSA is. I've personally used both the general purpose medical FSA and the dependent care FSA, and I always felt like I needed a crystal ball in order to truly take advantage of these accounts. The dependent care FSA was easier. I didn't need the crystal ball as much. I knew what my kids' child care expenses were going to be for the year, and they far exceeded the maximum I could contribute to the FSA. So I maxed that out without having to fear of having extra dollars at the end of the year that I would lose. For the medical FSA, I needed the crystal ball for sure. I could estimate some expenses, like I knew I would have certain prescriptions I would buy, and I would typically visit the doctor twice a year when I was sick. But outside of that, I didn't know if I was going to break an ankle while tripping over the curb or have a heart attack that year. Some people may have an easier time predicting their medical expenses, but for me, it wasn't so easy. If I contributed too much, I would lose it at the end of the year. If I put in too little, I miss out on the tax advantages of the account. At the beginning of each of the year, you estimate what your expenses are going to be, and you elect a dollar amount you're going to contribute, and you can't change it. Then during the year, you can make withdrawals to cover the expenses. Any remaining dollars are lost. It's because of that scenario that I always felt like I needed a crystal ball. So let's summarize what we just talked about. An HSA is tied to an HSA qualified medical plan. You own the funds and they never expire. Funds can also be invested. An FSA is not tied to a specific type of medical plan. You have a use it or lose it component. There are 3 different types. The employer owns the account. This is a high-level overview comparing an HSA to an FSA. I hope you found it helpful in looking at the major components of each one, and thank you so much for watching.